When someone expects you to chase after them, they are relying on a predictable pattern of human behavior. They are betting on your emotions, your fears, and your insecurities. They expect you to react impulsively, to seek closure, to demand answers, or to try and win back their attention. They believe that by pulling away, they can manipulate your emotions into doing exactly what they want. But what happens when you don't respond the way they expect? What happens when, instead of chasing, you remain still? That is where true power lies. Non-reaction is not about ignoring reality or pretending that something doesn't bother you. It is about mastering your emotions to the point where external events no longer dictate your internal state. It is about developing a level of self-control that makes you unpredictable, untouchable, and most importantly, independent of anyone else's validation. This is where the dynamic shifts, and this is where you take back your power. People who expect you to chase often do so because they have seen you react in the past. Maybe you have a history of always trying to fix things, of always seeking closure, of always wanting to understand why someone is behaving the way they are. And while that might come from a good place, maybe you just want clarity, maybe you believe in communication. What it actually does is put you in a position of weakness. When you react emotionally, you give control over to the other person. They dictate how you feel, how you respond, and ultimately how much peace you experience. Think about it. When someone pulls away and you immediately chase, you are telling them that they have the power to determine your next move. You are showing them that their absence affects you so much that you are willing to abandon your dignity, your self-respect, and your own emotional needs just to restore the connection. But when you don't chase, when you don't react, when you sit back and allow things to unfold without forcing an outcome, you disrupt the pattern. You create an energy shift that forces them to question their own actions. There is something incredibly powerful about a person who does not react emotionally. People are drawn to mystery. They are drawn to individuals who seem unaffected, who do not get easily swayed by the actions of others. When someone expects you to chase them and you do not, you become a mystery. You force them to wonder why their usual tactics aren't working, why their absence isn't affecting you, why you aren't reacting in the way they assumed you would. This is where the balance of power tilts in your favor. Most people live their lives on autopilot, constantly reacting to external events, constantly seeking validation from others, constantly allowing their emotions to be dictated by circumstances outside of their control. But when you train yourself to master non-reaction, when you develop the discipline to remain calm, collected, and unbothered, you enter an entirely different level of self-mastery. You are no longer at the mercy of other people's decisions. You are no longer a puppet being pulled by invisible emotional strings. You become the one in control. But here's the real secret. Mastering non-reaction is not just about dealing with other people. It is about training your mind to operate on a higher frequency. It is about becoming so in tune with yourself that external situations no longer shake your inner stability. It is about developing a level of emotional intelligence that allows you to see through manipulation, through games, through any attempt to control you. When you achieve this, you don't just stop chasing people, you stop chasing anything that is not meant for you. Imagine someone pulling away from you, expecting you to react. They expect you to text, to call, to plead for their attention. And when you do nothing, they are left wondering. They start to feel the void of your presence. They begin to realize that they are no longer in control. Suddenly, they're the ones questioning things. They're the ones wondering if they made a mistake. They're the ones feeling unsettled. And why? Because you did not give them the reaction they expected. Non-reaction is not about being passive. It is about being intentional. It is about recognizing that you always have a choice in how you respond to situations. You do not have to follow the script that someone else has written for you. You do not have to react out of fear, insecurity, or the need for validation. Instead, you can step back, assess the situation, and choose to remain grounded. And when you do, you become untouchable. When you refuse to chase, you send a powerful message, not just to the other person, but to yourself. You tell yourself that you are in control of your emotions, that you do not need external validation to feel whole, that you are worthy of someone who chooses you without games, without manipulation, without the need to test your reaction. You affirm that your peace is more important than proving a point, that your dignity is worth more than temporary validation, that your self-respect is not up for negotiation. This is where true power lies, in non-reaction, in self-control, in the ability to remain centered even when others try to disrupt your peace. Because once you master this, you become truly unstoppable. When you place your self-worth in the hands of someone else, you give them the power to control how you feel about yourself. The moment you seek validation from another person, you allow their actions, their words, and their approval to dictate your sense of value. This is where most people go wrong. They believe that if someone chooses them, it means they are worthy. If someone gives them attention, it means they are important. If someone loves them, it means they are enough. But the truth is, your worth has nothing to do with how someone else perceives you. It is not something that can be granted or taken away by another person. It exists within you, whether someone acknowledges it or not. People who expect you to chase after them thrive on the idea that you need their validation. They pull away because they assume you will come running. They expect you to fight for their attention because in their minds they are the prize. But when you refuse to play that game, when you stop seeking their validation, you disrupt their perception of power. You show them that your sense of self-worth is not dependent on whether they choose to stay or leave. That is where everything changes. Most people have been conditioned to believe that love and validation must be earned. From childhood, many were taught that being good, being pleasing, and being accommodating is the way to receive affection. As a result, they grow up believing that they must prove their worth to others in order to be loved. This conditioning carries over into relationships, friendships, and even professional environments. It leads people to chase, to seek approval, to attach their value to external factors. But this is a dangerous trap, because the moment you attach your self-worth to anything outside of yourself, you make it vulnerable. You allow it to be dictated by things that are fleeting and unpredictable. The person who truly understands their worth does not beg for attention. They do not need to be reassured of their value by someone else's presence. They do not feel the need to chase someone who is pulling away. Instead, they stand firm in the knowledge that their worth remains the same, whether someone acknowledges it or not. This is the mindset that separates those who are controlled by others from those who control their own reality. When someone expects you to chase them, and you don't, they are forced to confront a reality they were not prepared for. They begin to question why their absence is not affecting you, why their withdrawal is not making you desperate. They start to realize that the power they assumed they had over you was only an illusion. This is because when you stop seeking validation, you take away their ability to control how you feel. It is important to understand that seeking validation is not just about relationships. It happens in every area of life. People seek validation from their peers, from their bosses, from social media, from society. They shape their actions based on what they think will make them feel accepted, valued, and admired. But the irony is that the more you seek external validation, the less you actually receive it. People can sense when someone is desperate for approval, and it often has the opposite effect. It repels instead of attracts. When you stop chasing validation, something remarkable happens. You start to focus on yourself. You start to pour energy into your own growth, your own happiness, and your own peace. You stop wondering what someone else thinks of you and start asking yourself what you think of you. Instead of questioning why someone is ignoring you, you start questioning why you ever cared in the first place. And the moment you shift your focus inward, the entire dynamic of your relationships and interactions begins to change. People respect those who respect themselves. When you hold yourself in high regard, others have no choice but to do the same. When you no longer need someone's validation, you become more attractive in every way, not just romantically, but in all areas of life. Confidence is magnetic. Self-respect is undeniable. A person who knows their worth commands attention without having to beg for it. They walk into a room and people notice. They speak and people listen. They don't have to seek approval because they already approve of themselves. The key to breaking free from the cycle of seeking validation is to redefine your own standard of worth. It is to stop measuring yourself based on how others treat you and start measuring yourself based on your own principles, values, and self-respect. When you do this, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of trying to be enough for someone else. You no longer worry about who is giving you attention and who is not. You no longer stress over whether someone acknowledges your value. You simply exist in a state of knowing that your worth is non-negotiable. The moment you internalize this truth, everything changes. You stop reacting emotionally to people who try to play games with you. You stop feeling anxious when someone pulls away. You stop overthinking whether you did something wrong. You realize that the way someone treats you is a reflection of them, not you. And once you reach this level of understanding, you become untouchable. Desperation and detachment operate on two entirely different frequencies, and the difference between them determines whether you attract or repel people, opportunities, and success. Desperation is rooted in fear, the fear of loss, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being enough. It is a state of lack, a mindset that says, I need this person, this situation, this outcome to feel complete. Desperation makes people cling, chase, and overextend themselves in ways that diminish their value. It clouds judgment and leads to decisions driven by insecurity rather than confidence. When someone expects you to chase, it is because they sense that you need their approval, their presence, or their validation to feel secure. They believe they can control the situation by making themselves seem scarce, believing that the more they withdraw, the more you will reach for them. This dynamic plays out in relationships, business, friendships, and every aspect of life. But when you detach, when you shift from needing to wanting, from chasing to allowing, everything changes. Detachment is not about indifference. It is about confidence. It is the quiet assurance that what is meant for you will align with you effortlessly. It is about recognizing that your worth is not dependent on whether someone stays or leaves. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop over-investing in people and situations that are not reciprocating the energy you give. It is the mindset that says, I do not chase, I attract. If it belongs in my life, it will stay. If it does not, I will not force it. When desperation is present, it is evident in body language, energy, and the way a person communicates. It comes through in the way someone constantly seeks reassurance, overanalyzes every word, and fears silence. It creates a sense of pressure, and pressure pushes people away. The moment someone senses that they are being chased, they instinctively pull away. It is human nature to devalue what comes too easily and to desire what seems unattainable. On the other hand, detachment exudes an effortless confidence that is hard to ignore. When you are detached, you do not seek validation from outside sources. You do not need constant reassurance because you already know your value. You do not become emotionally overwhelmed by someone's temporary absence or silence. Instead of reacting impulsively, you observe. Instead of fearing loss, you trust that whatever leaves is making space for something better. This energy is powerful because it signals that you are in control, that you do not fear being alone, that you are not reliant on external factors to feel complete. Think about the most influential, respected, and admired individuals. They do not beg for attention. They do not chase people or force situations. They operate with a calm, steady presence that draws others toward them naturally. Their energy speaks before they do. They do not need to over-explain themselves or prove their worth because their actions and presence do that for them. When you embody this energy, people are drawn to you without effort. They feel a sense of respect and curiosity because you are not easily shaken. The shift from desperation to detachment is not about playing games or pretending not to care. It is about rewiring the way you see yourself and the world around you. It is about realizing that attachment to outcomes creates anxiety while trusting the process creates peace. It is about understanding that if something requires you to beg, force, or manipulate, it is not meant for you. True connections, whether in love, friendships, or business, should flow naturally without constant struggle. When you detach, you create space for the right things to align with you. You become more present, more focused on yourself, and more open to better opportunities. The irony is that the less you chase, the more you attract. The less you fear losing, the more you gain. The less you try to control everything, the more things work in your favor. Detachment allows you to move with grace instead of desperation. It keeps your energy strong, your presence valuable, and your mind clear. People can sense when someone is operating from a place of lack versus a place of abundance. Desperation creates an energy that feels heavy, needy, and unstable. It makes others feel like they are responsible for your happiness, which can be overwhelming. But when you are detached, your energy feels light, confident, and self-sufficient. People gravitate toward this energy because it is rare. It is the energy of someone who knows that their happiness, peace, and success are not dependent on anything external. The greatest shift happens when you realize that you do not need to convince anyone of your worth. You do not need to beg for attention or prove your value. When you operate from a place of detachment, you are no longer swayed by temporary emotions or external factors. You move through life with the certainty that what aligns with your highest good will always find its way to you. This level of inner strength makes you untouchable. People expect you to react emotionally when they pull away. They expect you to feel abandoned, anxious, and desperate for their attention. It is a psychological game, a test to see if you will break, if you will chase, if you will lower your standards in the name of securing their presence. But when you do the opposite, when you remain unbothered, when you refuse to react emotionally, you shift the entire dynamic. Suddenly they are the ones questioning, the ones wondering, the ones unsettled by your silence. Emotional control is one of the most powerful tools a person can have. The ability to remain composed when someone is trying to trigger a reaction from you is the ultimate form of strength. Most people live in a state of reactivity. They are easily manipulated by words, by actions, by silence. They allow their emotions to be dictated by external circumstances, which makes them easy to control. But when you learn how to master your emotions, you become untouchable. People who expect you to chase are relying on your emotional instability. They assume that if they withdraw their attention, you will come running, desperate for their approval. This is why they pull away in the first place, to test your attachment, to see if they have power over you. But when you do not react, when you do not respond with desperation, you immediately shift the power dynamic. Now, instead of controlling you, they are left wondering why their absence is not affecting you. They begin to question if they were as important to you as they assumed. The truth is, emotional reactivity comes from insecurity. It is the product of attaching your self-worth to someone else's actions. When you believe that another person has the power to validate or invalidate you, you will always be controlled by their behavior. You will always find yourself reacting instead of acting with intention. But when you detach from the need for external validation, you become emotionally self-sufficient. You no longer need someone else's presence, attention, or approval to feel whole. This is what makes you powerful. Remaining unbothered does not mean suppressing emotions. It does not mean pretending that you do not care. It means mastering the art of emotional discipline. It means choosing to respond rather than react. It means refusing to allow someone else to dictate your state of mind. This level of self-control is rare, which is why it is so powerful. Most people are used to emotional outbursts, begging, pleading, chasing. They are used to people reacting impulsively when faced with rejection, silence, or uncertainty. But when you do not give them that reaction, they are forced to rethink everything. Emotional control is about power. Power over yourself, power over your life, power over how you allow others to affect you. When you remain calm in situations that are designed to provoke you, you are proving to yourself and others that you operate on a different level. You are showing that you are not easily manipulated, that you are not desperate for validation, that you have something most people lack: inner stability. This kind of power is magnetic. It draws people in without you having to do anything. It makes people respect you, admire you, and in many cases regret ever underestimating you. Think about the times you have reacted emotionally in the past. Did it ever give you the result you wanted? Did chasing after someone ever make them respect you more? Did proving yourself to someone ever make them see your worth? Or did it only make you feel weak, drained, and regretful? Emotional reactivity never leads to power. It only leads to disappointment, because it puts you in a position where you are acting from a place of weakness rather than strength. When you remain unbothered, you are sending a clear message: I do not need external approval. I do not need to chase. I do not need to lower myself to prove my value. This message is powerful because it disrupts expectations. People who are used to controlling others through emotional manipulation do not know how to handle someone who refuses to play their game. They thrive on instability, on making people doubt themselves, on pushing buttons to get a reaction. But when those buttons no longer work, they are left powerless. This is why emotional discipline is the key to maintaining your value in any situation. It allows you to see things clearly, to make decisions from a place of logic rather than emotion, to maintain your dignity no matter what. People who lack emotional control give away their power too easily. They allow temporary feelings to dictate permanent actions. They make impulsive choices based on fear, attachment, or desperation. But when you master your emotions, you move differently. You do not beg for clarity. You do not demand attention. You do not lose yourself trying to keep someone who does not see your worth. The moment you stop reacting emotionally, you take back control. You no longer live in fear of loss, because you understand that anything that leaves was never truly meant for you. You do not seek revenge. You do not hold on to bitterness. And you do not let temporary emotions make permanent decisions for you. You simply observe, adjust, and move forward with an unshakable sense of confidence. And in doing so, you become someone who cannot be manipulated, controlled, or broken by anyone. When someone expects you to chase them, they are relying on your need for validation. They believe that if they pull away, you will panic. They assume that your self-worth is so tied to their presence that you will feel the need to prove yourself to them. But when you focus on self-improvement instead of seeking their attention, you completely shift the power dynamic. You take all the energy you would have spent on chasing them and redirect it towards becoming a better version of yourself. That shift is what makes them stop and take notice. People expect you to beg for their presence, but they do not expect you to disappear and level up. They do not expect you to grow in silence, to invest in yourself, to become stronger, wiser, and more confident without them. This is why self-improvement is the greatest response you can give to anyone who expects you to chase. It is not about proving them wrong. It is about proving to yourself that your happiness, success, and self-worth were never dependent on them in the first place. Most people react to rejection or abandonment emotionally. They feel the urge to explain themselves, to fight for attention, to prove their worth to someone who has already devalued them. They waste time dwelling on why someone left, why someone ignored them, why they were not chosen. But in doing so, they miss the most powerful opportunity. The opportunity to turn that pain into growth. Every time you choose to focus on yourself instead of trying to seek validation from someone else, you are setting yourself up for a breakthrough. The process of self-improvement requires discipline. It requires you to shift your focus from external validation to internal growth. It forces you to ask yourself, what can I do to become the best version of myself, instead of asking, why did they leave me? That shift in mindset is what separates those who remain stuck in the same cycles from those who rise above them. Every moment you spend improving yourself is a moment you are taking control of your life. Imagine for a moment that instead of reacting emotionally, you used every ounce of energy to build yourself up. Instead of checking their social media, wondering if they miss you, or analyzing their every move, you focused entirely on yourself. You worked on your mindset, your confidence, your health, your skills. You became sharper, more disciplined, more self-aware. Over time, this version of you would become so strong that the very people who once expected you to chase would have no choice but to see you in a different light. Growth has a way of making people realize what they lost. When you improve yourself, you do not have to prove anything to anyone. The results speak for themselves. The energy of someone who has evolved, who has learned from their experiences, who has built themselves into a person of value is impossible to ignore. The people who once took you for granted will notice. The people who thought you needed them will realize that you never did. The people who assumed you would always be available will suddenly question everything. But here is the real secret. By the time they notice, you will no longer care. You will have grown so much that their validation will no longer hold the weight it once did. You will see them for who they truly are, not through the lens of longing or desperation, but with the clarity that comes from self-worth. You will realize that they were never the prize, you were. And that realization is what changes everything. Self-improvement is not about making someone regret losing you. It is about making sure you never lose yourself again. It is about ensuring that you never place your value in someone else's hands. When you work on yourself, when you elevate your mindset, when you step into your highest potential, you naturally attract better people, better opportunities, and a better life. You stop operating from a place of lack and start operating from a place of abundance. And when you do that, the game changes entirely. Most people settle for temporary validation because they do not realize how much they are capable of. They spend so much time worrying about who likes them, who is paying attention to them, who is responding to their messages, that they forget the bigger picture. They forget that their time and energy are the most valuable resources they have. The moment you start directing those resources towards your own growth instead of chasing after people, you gain a level of power that is undeniable. Think about the most successful, confident, and fulfilled people in the world. They do not chase, they do not beg, they do not seek approval, they work on themselves. They invest in their growth, they build themselves into people of such high value that others naturally gravitate toward them. That is the energy you need to embody. When you focus on becoming your best self, the right people will come to you effortlessly. You will no longer have to chase because you will be too busy elevating. The best revenge is not anger. It is not proving a point. It is not making someone miss you. It is success. It is becoming so powerful in your own right that you no longer need anything from anyone. It is becoming the kind of person who is so focused on their purpose, their growth, and their happiness that external validation becomes irrelevant. And when you reach that level, you will realize that the people who expected you to chase were never worth your time to begin with. There is a unique kind of power in moving forward without looking back. When someone expects you to chase them, they believe that their absence will create a void in your life so deep that you will feel compelled to reach out, to beg, to prove your worth. They rely on the idea that their departure will shake you, that their silence will torment you. But when you choose to move on without hesitation, without explanation, without seeking closure, you shatter their expectations entirely. You remove their ability to control your emotions. You take back your power in the most effortless way possible by refusing to give them a reaction. Most people do not realize how much energy they waste dwelling on those who have left them behind. They replay conversations, dissect every detail, and search for meaning in the silence. They convince themselves that if they just had one more conversation, if they just sent one more message, if they just proved themselves one more time, they could change the outcome. But the truth is, the moment someone walks away from you, the decision has already been made. No amount of explaining, chasing, or seeking clarity will change that. The only thing you can control is how you respond. And the most powerful response is to keep moving forward as if nothing happened. This is not about suppressing emotions or pretending that you do not care. It is about understanding that closure is a concept designed to keep people trapped in cycles of seeking validation. You do not need closure when you trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it is meant to. You do not need an explanation when you know your worth. You do not need someone to acknowledge what they lost when you have already gained something far more valuable. Freedom. The moment you stop looking for closure, you start creating it for yourself. You realize that no amount of validation from someone else will ever compare to the peace that comes from knowing you did not compromise your dignity. Moving forward without looking back is an act of self-respect. It is a statement to yourself and to the world that you will not waste your time on people who cannot see your value. It is a declaration that you refuse to chase anyone who has already made the decision to walk away. It is a commitment to yourself, to your growth, to your peace, to your future. When you adopt this mindset, you stop fearing loss. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself to those who have already underestimated you. You understand that anyone who truly valued you would never put you in a position where you felt the need to chase them. People often mistake attachment for love. They believe that holding on is a sign of loyalty, that waiting for someone to come back is proof of commitment. But true strength is not in holding on, it is in letting go. It is in recognizing when someone no longer serves your growth and having the courage to walk away without hesitation. It is in understanding that your worth is not determined by whether or not someone stays, but by how you carry yourself when they leave. When you master this mindset, you become untouchable. Those who expect you to chase are playing a game designed to test your self-worth, to measure your level of emotional control, to see if they can manipulate your reactions. They want to know that they can pull away and still hold power over you. But when you do not react, when you do not reach out, when you do not break under the weight of their absence, you disrupt the entire game. You leave them wondering. You make them question everything. You force them to sit with the realization that they are not as important to you as they thought. Most people fail to move on because they believe that letting go means admitting defeat. They see it as giving up, as losing something valuable. But in reality, moving on is the ultimate victory. It is proof that you value yourself enough to walk away from anything that does not align with your highest good. It is a silent but powerful statement that says, I do not need you, I choose myself. And that kind of confidence is rare. That kind of self-assurance is what separates those who stay stuck in cycles of seeking approval from those who elevate to a level where approval is no longer necessary. Imagine what your life would look like if you stop chasing, stop waiting, stop wondering. Imagine how much mental energy you would free up if you no longer obsessed over people who had already shown you that they do not value you. Imagine the kind of person you would become if you redirected all of that time, focus, and emotion into your own growth, your own success, your own happiness. That is where true power lies, not in trying to change someone's mind, but in realizing that their opinion no longer matters. Moving forward is not about proving a point to anyone else. It is not about making them regret their decision. It is not about playing games or trying to spark their curiosity. It is about reclaiming your time, your energy, your life. It is about recognizing that you do not need to chase what is already meant for you. It is about understanding that real love, real connection, real relationships do not require you to lower your standards or sacrifice your self-respect. Most people waste months, even years, trying to win back the approval of someone who never truly appreciated them to begin with. They stay stuck in a loop of longing, believing that if they just prove their worth, they will finally be chosen. But the truth is, the right people do not need convincing. The right people do not require you to chase, to beg, to plead. The right people will recognize your value from the beginning and treat you accordingly. And when you understand this, you will stop wasting your time on anyone who does not. The most powerful thing you can do when someone expects you to chase is to keep moving forward as if they were never a part of your path. To build yourself up so strongly that their absence does not leave a void, but rather creates space for something far greater. To show not through words, not through games, but through pure action that you are perfectly fine without them. That is where real power lies. Not in seeking validation from others, but in finding all the validation you need within yourself.